We can adjust the height of this, right? Good morning. Welcome to Kitsap UU Fellowship. Please rise in body or spirit to join in singing our call to worship. We give thanks, hymn number 1010 in our teal hymnal. Once again, welcome to the Kitsap Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. We're so glad to be here together in this loving, vibrant community. Whoever you are and wherever you come from, for this hour, we here are one gathered congregation and all are welcome. My name is Mac Johnson, and in the spirit of our KUUF mission and part of our ever-growing welcome, I offer you this self-description. I am a Social Security eligible male, he, him pronouns, with a greenish striped shirt. I used to have red hair and a beard. Then I used to have brown hair. Then I used to have hair. I was a social studies teacher at North Mason High School for over 30 years, and that's about how long my dear wife, Lisa, in the back there, and I have been members of KUUF. Our worship leader this morning is the great Reverend Carol McKinley. Reverend McKinley is an affiliated community minister with the Olympia UU congregation and a frequent speaker here at KUUF. Welcome back, Reverend Carol. I'd like to welcome any visitors. If you're here in person, we all look forward to welcome you after the service. If nobody talks to you, go make them. I invite you to follow along in the order of service. For those of you attending virtually, all the links for this service, including the order of service, are on our website and in this morning's worship service email. If you're here in the sanctuary this morning, please silence your electronic devices. It's just hard to remember. The announcements are available on our website. www.kuuf.org, or in our weekly email newsletter, The Candle. Now for our native lands acknowledgement. We acknowledge that the land on which we gather is the Aboriginal territory of the Suquamish people. Expert fishermen, canoe builders, and basket weavers, the Suquamish live in harmony with the lands and waterways along Washington's Central Salish Sea, as they have for thousands of years. Here the Suquamish live and protect the land and waters of their ancestors for future generations, as promised by the Point Elliott Treaty of 1855.
Good morning. And following Mac's lead on the self-description, I'm Carol McKinley, and I use she, her pronouns. And also following his lead, I am of the Medicare eligible category. And with white hair, today I'm wearing a purple top with one of my favorite stoles, which is a mix of purple, black, and teal. Our opening words today, in recognizing that this is the Memorial Day weekend, are by the poet Nicole McKay. She writes, "We gather to remember those who could not grow old and those forced to grow old long before their time. We gather to mourn and grieve with one another all of our losses, the people, the stories, the loved ones, and the futures they couldn't have had. We gather to do the hard work of facing the difficult realities of our present and our past, where there is conflict, violence, war, and hatred. We gather to hold space for silence as we try to make meaning of our history to help us work for peace and justice today. We gather to rekindle our source of hope for our future by recognizing in one another our shared humanity as we join in a concentrated commitment for a better tomorrow. We gather because we need community to do all of this holy work. Once again, good morning. It is good to be together.
And now we welcome Lena Hajek to come up and light our chalice. Join me now in lighting our chalice. If you have your own chalice or candle at home, please light it as I read our chalice lighting words, which are adopted from Dorothy Emerson. A wise person once said, "Take from the past not its ashes, but its fire." Today we kindle this flame, knowing that our presence forms a bridge between the past and the future. May the flame we light in our hearts today empower us to act boldly for a world of peace and justice. May it shine brightly in our lives as a beacon for future generations. Now please join me in the spoken affirmation. The words will appear on the video screens. We gather as a caring community seeking life's deeper meanings. We value diversity and affirm the worth of living things. We strive to speak truth in love, to act for justice, to grow in spirit, and to care for the earth. We celebrate with open hearts and minds the creative power that sustains and transforms us. Our next hymn is The Fire of Commitment. This hymn was written by composer and UU worship leader Jason Shelton in 2002 for the celebration of First Unitarian Universalist Nashville's 50th anniversary. Please rise in body and or in spirit to join in singing hymn number 1028 in our teal hymnal, The Fire of Commitment. This thing wants to throw you over backwards. Hello again. This is our story for sharing the time for all ages. I'll remove the post-it that says, "This is the book for Mac to read." Thank you, Melinda, for providing this in advance. Our awesome tech support aide, Greg, is going to follow the slides along with me. Maybe something beautiful. How art transformed a neighborhood. By F. Isabel Kempoy and Teresa Howell. Illustrated by Rafael Lopez. In the heart of a gray city, there lived a girl who loved to doodle, draw, color, and paint. Every time she saw a blank piece of paper, Mira thought to herself, maybe. And because of this, her room was filled with color and her heart was filled with joy. On her way to school one day, Mira gave a round apple to Mr. Henry, the owner of the shop down the street. She gave a flower to Mrs. Lopez, the lady with the sparkling eyes. She gave a songbird to Mr. Sachs and a red heart to the policeman who walked up and down the streets. On her way home, Mira taped a glowing sun onto the wall, hiding in the shadows. Her city was less gray, but not much. The next day, Mira saw a man with a pocket full of paintbrushes. He gazed at the wall. He looked at her son. He held his fingers up in a square and peered through them. He said thoughtfully. What do you see? Mira asked. Maybe something beautiful, the man replied. Then just like that, he dipped the brush in the paint. Bam! Pow! The shadows scurried away. Sky blue cut through the gloom. The man's laughter was like a rainbow spreading across the sky. Who are you? Mira asked. I'm an artist, a muralist. I paint on walls. I'm an artist too, she told him. He handed Mira a brush. Then come on. Mira dipped it in the loudest color she saw. Its color was Yahweh! The wall lit up like sunshine. As the man drew pictures on the bricks, Mira added color, punch, and pizzazz. Soon Mr. Sachs joined in. Then came others. Everyone painted to the rhythm. Salsa, merengue, bebop. Even Mira's mama painted and danced the cha-cha. The whole neighborhood became a giant block party until the policeman walked up. Excuse me, he said. The music stopped. Mira put her brush down. They were surely in trouble. The officer cleared his throat, then paused. May I paint with you? He asked. So Mira handed him a paintbrush. And the music started again. Teachers and papas jumped in, babies too. Mira and the man handed out brush after brush. Color spread throughout the streets. So did joy. Wherever Mira and the man went, art followed like the string of a kite. After they colored the walls, they painted utility boxes and benches. Don't sit on them too soon. They decorated sidewalks with poetry and shine, and everyone danced. Together they created something more beautiful than they had ever imagined. When their clothes were spattered with a million colors, everyone sat down to rest, except the muralist. His eyes sparkled. You, my friends, are all artists, he told them. The world is your canvas. He smiled wide, then pulled everything together in big sweeping motions. His paintbrush was like a magic wand. When he was finished, Mira added one more bird way up in the sky. Maybe, she thought, just maybe. The end. Please join me now in singing our children up to their classes. The words for May You Go With Joy will appear on the screens. May you go with joy into this gentle day, knowing love holds you as we go. We gather as a religious community to give each one of us a place where we can do the work of many. Together, our light is much brighter than a solitary flame. Now is the time in our service when we share in the sacred act of giving, an expression of gratitude transformed into generosity that breathes life into our mission. As part of our mission that inspires us to act on our beliefs, we share our weekly offering with a local nonprofit agency providing services within our larger community. Our charitable giving recipient for the month of May is the Kitsap Immigrant Assistance Center. In a moment, our ushers will move among us with baskets to collect the offering. Donations placed in the basket will go to the Kitsap Immigrant Assistance Center. If you'd like your offering to be used for KUUF, please use one of the envelopes provided to you with your order of service when you came into the sanctuary. For those joining us online, you may go to our website, kuuf.org, and select the Giving tab for PayPal and mailing information. If this is your first time at KUF, feel free to let the basket pass you by. Your presence is your gift today. Now let there be an offering to strengthen and sustain our community, which is sacred to so many of us. Let us enjoy a gift of music from our music coordinator, Brian Kenny. Now is the time for our joys and sorrows. When shared together, our joys are amplified and our sorrows lessened. We have 3 today. Bonner Sams celebrated his 59th orbit around the sun this past Wednesday. Not a day over 58, you don't look. By replacing his cracked windshield, he assures us that it doesn't get any more adult than that. We have a double sorrow here from Irina Manata, submitted online. My husband of 25 years and I are going through a divorce, and my mom is suffering from Alzheimer's. We're very sorry about that, and I hope we get to know you better, Irina. And we have a double joy from Jenny Dorsey Acosta. Her joy is, my daughter and son-in-law bought a home in Federal Way and are expecting their first child, a boy, on September 1st, which just happens to be my daughter's 33rd birthday. Fantastic. And we light one last candle for those joys and sorrows that are still too tender to share. Please join me now in a moment of prayer or intention. In the spirit of community in which we find strength and common purpose, we share our joys, our sorrows, our hopes and dreams. We have turned our minds and hearts toward one another in trust, giving love, seeking comfort, and celebrating together. We are part of the web of life that makes us one with all humanity, one with all the universe. In all the moments of our lives, for those loved ones and events shared this morning, and for those we yet hold in the silence of our hearts, we are truly grateful for the love and support of this beloved community. May the spirit of life and love bring peace to us all. Amen, and blessed be. Please remain seated as we sing Spirit of Life, hymn number 123 in our gray hymnal. The words will appear on your screens.
We have 2 readings this morning, and the first one is by the poet Gregory Orr, called Let's Remake the World with Words. Let's remake the world with words, not frivolously, nor to hide from what we fear, but with a purpose. Let's, as Wordsworth said, remove the dust of custom from things, so things shine again, each object arrayed in its robe of original light. And then we'll see the world as if for the first time, as once we gazed at the beloved who was gazing at us. The second reading is by the poet Nancy Willard, entitled "A Hardware Store as Proof of the Existence of God." Amen. That's right. I praise the brightness of hammers pointing east like the steel woodpeckers of the future, and dozens of hinges opening brass wings, and 6 new rakes shyly fanning their toes, and bins of hooks glittering into bees, and a rack of wrenches like the long bones of horses, and mailboxes sewing rows of silver chapels, and a company of plungers waiting for God to claim their thin legs in their big shoes and put them on and walk away laughing. In a world not perfect, but not bad either, let there be glue, glaze, gum, and grabs, caulk also, and hooks, chains, cables, and slips, and signs so spare a child may read them. Men, women, in, out, no parking, beware the dog. In the right hands, they can work wonders. I invite you now into a moment of reflection and silence, followed by our post-reflection music performed by Brian Kenny. God may seem like an unusual reading for a Sunday morning church service, but that poem holds special meaning for me. My dad was a wholesale hardware salesman, and I have found that I am among a large number of people who really love hardware stores. When I was in grade school, I sometimes hung out at Spokane's large Jensen Bird retail store waiting for my dad and waiting for a ride home while he finished up some paperwork. So that waiting time became real entertainment for me. I loved the oily, slightly metallic smell of that store. And I never got tired of looking at the displayed items, the racks of wrenches, hammers, and saws, the bins. Remember when you could actually go into bins and buy nails and bolts and screws? The shelves of paints, finishes, and brushes, the glassed-in displays of pocket knives, fishing reels, and lures. So reading Nancy Willard's poem gave me a new way to remember those tools on racks and shelves, to see them not only as mundane objects for sale, but as tools to achieve the miraculous. I also began to think of the hardware store that it holds an existential meaning, a place with countless possibilities to help people do wonderful things. Yes, in the right hands, those tools can do amazing things. Fix the plumbing, paint the bedroom in a beautiful shade of light gray, build a tree house, even remake or recreate the world. Take the tools, add imagination and creativity, and just see what miracles can occur. As Melinda has explained during the Time for All Ages, the Children's Religious Education program this year is using Unitarian Universalist Association program called Soul Matters. Now, Soul Matters suggests themes for each month and provides ideas and resources for the RE teachers to develop that monthly theme through the children's activities. And of course, Soul Matters is also offered for adults. And the story today that Melinda chose for us offers that story of creativity. And today, I invite those of us here in the sanctuary to engage in some creative thinking of our own, allowing ourselves to take a second look at some mundane parts of our lives, seeing them with new eyes as expressions of the creativity that bubbles up all around us. Willard's poem is such a wonderful example. By looking with those new eyes, possibilities emerge. And creativity is so needed in our world of volatile climate change, racial conflict, deepening economic divide, simmering and boiling wars around the globe. So how do we address today's challenges? Make the world around us a little better, more welcoming, more just, more loving. In the face of such challenges, we are perhaps more than ever called to imagine new ways of being in this world. Creativity asks us to view things from a different perspective. And that's how new possibilities or new alternatives can emerge. And that's exactly what Willard did as she took another look at what possibilities lie within a hardware store. Of course, the ability to generate alternatives or to see things in a new way does not happen just by chance. It's linked to other, more fundamental qualities of thinking, such as flexibility, tolerance of ambiguity or unpredictability, the enjoyment of things heretofore unknown, flexibility, tolerance of ambiguity or unpredictability, the enjoyment of things heretofore unknown. To me, that sounds exactly what we're called to do in our Unitarian Universalist congregations. And vision always lies behind and underneath creativity. Vision is what offers new ways to imagine our world, of what can be. When the 26-year-old preacher, Martin Luther King Jr., gave his "I Have a Dream" speech on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial in 1963, he envisioned a future. He envisioned that, a future without racism and with civil and economic rights for all. And by imagining that future, he was creating possibilities of a world where his children would not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character, where black and white children would join hands as brothers and sisters. Now, King knew that this was long-haul work, that the chances are that it would not be done in his lifetime. But by articulating that vision, that such a world was possible, he inspired those listening to him that day to engage in the struggle toward building such a world. First of all, having a vision, then working to fulfill that vision. That is how the work of this world is done. Recently, I was reminded in my reading of an interview with the poet, Nikki Giovanni. Giovanni was one of my favorite voices from the 1970s, and she was teaching on the Virginia Tech campus, where one of the first of the since horrific, tragic mass shootings took place. On that day at Virginia Tech, 32 people died. The next day, she spoke to the deeply hurting people on the campus. And she said, words, she said, let us know that we are not alone. I think with words, we acknowledge that we're human and that we hurt. When she was asked how she coped with her own fears, Nikki Giovanni replied, life is a great idea. Keep thinking of things that are wonderful to do. Life is a great idea. Now, since that day at Virginia Tech, families and communities, all of us, have experienced the horror of senseless violence, acts that deny the humanity of our neighbors. Yet our humanity is resolutely affirmed through the words of poets and orators, the kindness of friends and strangers. Giovanni's words, like those of Dr. King, are invitations to act, to recreate a world of love and justice. In today's opening words, Gregory Orr extended that invitation. He writes, let's remake the world with words, not frivolously, nor to hide from what we fear, but with a purpose. Remaking the world. What possibilities lie in those words? And we can be grateful to the word artists who use their magic at their fingertips to do some of that remaking, reminding us that life is a great idea, that creating beauty and hope from the ugliness and despair we see around us is how that idea becomes real. No, those mass shootings have not ended. If anything, they have increased, becoming an almost daily occurrence. But each one of us, including lawmakers, activists, and people of goodwill, are still trying to change that trajectory. First, by reminding us that it is possible. It is possible that each one of us, acting in love, has a much-needed part in that transformation. Reminding us on this Memorial Day weekend that peace is possible, that lives given in defense of freedom are not lost in vain. Reminding us, as Nikki Giovanni said, that life is a great idea, creating and recreating the world. And when we look, we see it happening all around us. Creativity is put into action not only by writers and artists, but by ordinary people. People like those in the story that our Story for All Ages shared with us today during the story time. Mira and her neighbors transformed what had been a drab, gray San Diego street, by creating a place of color and joy. This past week, I read a news story of a really huge transformation. Alaska Airlines unveiled its latest custom-painted Boeing 737, featuring artwork by a Northwest indigenous artist. Now, that newspaper story in the Seattle Times included a time-lapse film showing the creation of a swirling salmon design on the plane. And that design carries the name Zatquani, meaning salmon people in the language of the Tlingit of Southeast Alaska. For several years, the artist of that piece, Crystal Kekeya Rose Worrell, imagined what her work would look like on an Alaska Airlines plane. Her mom worked at the carrier, and while she was growing up in Juneau, Alaska, Worrell often saw those Alaska Airlines planes flying overhead. And she said, "Each time I see an airplane, a boat, a car, a wall, any shape, any form, I can't help but visualize how my designs could wrap around it." So I like to think of her looking up over her head in the days ahead as the plane flies over her home in Sitka, seeing that huge technical marvel bearing her beautiful swirling salmon design flying over her head, knowing that countless others will see the beauty of that design as well. Creativity, generating new possibilities, looking with new eyes at the world, taking steps then to make it real. Many years ago, I came across an ad for Apple computers. It had to have been at least 20 years ago. And even advertising, maybe especially advertising, is constantly looking at the world with new eyes, especially if greater sales of a product can result. Nevertheless, this ad, based on the writing of the Beat author Jack Kerouac, caught my eye, and I saved it in my computer file, and I came across it the other day. And I'm glad I did, because it's all about creativity. And it reads, "Here's to the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers, the round pegs in the square holes, the ones who see things differently. They're not fond of rules, and they have no respect for the status quo. You can praise them, disagree with them, quote them, disbelieve them, glorify or vilify them. About the only thing you can't do is ignore them, because they change things. They invent, they imagine, they heal, they explore, they create, they inspire. They push the human race forward. Maybe they have to be crazy. How else can you stare at an empty canvas and not see a work of art? Or sit in silence and hear a song that's never been written? Or gaze at a red planet and see a laboratory on wheels? While some of us may see them as the crazy ones, we see genius. Because the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do. The people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do. Well, maybe they have a vision of what that world could look like, a vision realized and sustained by lots of hope, creativity, and the efforts of many others. People like that German priest, Martin Luther, his namesake, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. Those 18th century revolutionaries gathered in Philadelphia to create a new previously unimagined way of being a nation. A president who believed ending the evil of slavery was worth the risk of civil war. Women who believed that equality for all actually meant all. A diminutive Swedish girl who calls on the world's nations to stop the destruction of our environment. Creative thinkers, people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world, are the ones who are doing it in our communities. The volunteers building 30 small homes to create a tiny house village for people who have been sleeping on the street. A group of actors who decide they want to put on plays and create a community theater. A neighborhood organizing a beach cleanup. A group of LGBTQ plus people who said, let's have a pride festival here in Bremerton, and created an annual festival. And all of you here at Kitsap Unitarian Universalist Fellowship, on Sunday morning, you have joined your voices together on hymns to create the joys of music. And thank you, Mike and Brian, as you provide the music underlying our voices. Then some of you bring delicious treats that you've made for everyone to enjoy. All of you continuing to create and sustain this liberal religious home for those gathered here today and for those who will gather in the future. Yes, creativity is all around us. Each one of you has a part in making it real. When you tell yourself, I don't have a creative bone in my body, I'm not an artist, I don't design computer programs, I can't even sing on key. But look at your garden. And aren't you the one who brought the flowers this morning to beautify this sanctuary? Didn't you plan that potluck last month? And that's creativity. You are making new ways of being together. You are creating community, whether or not you realize it at the time. Making real the love that impels us to imagine new ways of being in this world. The theologian Pierre Teilhard de Chardin reminds us, we are one after all, you and I. Together we suffer, together exist, and forever will recreate each other. As we move into the months and years ahead, continue to ask yourself what it means to be part of this Unitarian Universalist congregation. Then go ahead and find new ways to hold up love as your guide to the work you are doing together. Create and recreate this religious community for each other, for the wider community, and for the future. Continue to remake this world with love through words and actions. Continue to work for equity, inclusion, justice, and transformation. This is, after all, what we are called to do as people of faith. And as we do this work, keep thinking of things that are wonderful to do with others. As Nikki Giovanni reminds us, life is indeed a great idea. Amen, and so may it be. And now, let us join together as you rise as you're willing and able to sing our closing hymn, Just as Long as I Have Breath. It's number 6 in the gray hymnal. And the words are on the screen. As you leave the sanctuary today, coffee will be served on the breezeway, and you are free to bring your refreshments back into this area if you would like to be into a warmer area. Our closing words as we extinguish our chalice are by the poet David White, adapted from his poem, Working Together. We shape ourself to fit this world, and by the world are shaped again. The visible and the invisible working together in common cause to produce the miraculous. Amen, and so may it be.
Yeah, I know, it's one of those things where I saw that it was a McKinley, and I thought, oh, well.
Yeah, I knew we'd get it right.
Yeah. We've actually just celebrated our 40th wedding
Oh,
anniversary. a
so
couple
you want
weeks
to have
ago.
the right last name, right?
The old-fashioned way.
Yeah.
Today's date, if I'm gonna get
The
it right.
28th.
28th.
May.
Gotta make sure I do that right, so I
Yeah,
don't
you're
sign.
down.
I'm
Yeah,
not
don't
the
sign for
president, no.
me. I wonder what that sign is on the tree down there.
It's a good question.
I never noticed it before.
Yeah, I noticed it, but because there's nothing, there doesn't appear to be anything written on it. Maybe there's something written on the other side.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. And all this will get turned in, and then you can ask Tanisha for copies of it.